Hi, everyone, and welcome to GLF Live. My name is Gabrielle Lipton, editor of Landscape News for the Global Landscapes Forum. And today we are here to discuss a specific financial mechanism that is becoming an increasingly powerful tool for businesses and organizations and anyone else looking to make sustainable investments. And that mechanism, that tool that we're here to talk about is impact bonds. We have with us here two experts who are going to explain much better than I can what an impact bond is, and I'll introduce them and get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to set just a bit of groundwork. According to a UN report released earlier this year, there's a $4 trillion gap annually between the funding that we have and the funding that's needed in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So of course, this gap is not going to be filled with any single one donor or tool or country or angel investor, but a combination of all of the funding streams we have at our disposal. So with that in mind, Impact, INNPACT, it's an impact finance institution, and they have co-founded and recently launched Imagine, which is a similar financial platform focused on impact bonds in particular. And the goal of this is to help grow the size of the impact bond piece in the larger sustainable finance puzzle that we have to put together. So today we're going to dig into the mission of Imagine and impact bonds, and we have with us here two of the leading experts behind this platform, Arnaud Guillen and Siga Torfadotier. Arnaud is the partner and co-founder of Impact, with more than 15 years of experience working in impact funds, on top of a prior career as a consultant with Accenture and manager at the Banque de Luxembourg. And Siga is the associate director and head of fund management services at Impact, and she leads the Imagine Impact Bond platform, and she comes with more than 2 decades of experience working across the banking and finance space. So welcome, Arnaud and Siga. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and teach us about impact bonds today, and we are here to learn from you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you very much for inviting us first. This is our first on GLF Live. We've been participating to many GLF forums, especially the investment case, trying to find solution and bring solution for sustainable land use in general, and how what we've learned over the last 15 years of designing impact funds could contribute to these objectives. So maybe if I may, I would start with a few sentences about who we are. So we're based in Luxembourg. We are fully dedicated to the design, the launch, and the supportive management of impact investment structures. So impact funds, well, the definition that you would find on the web is basically these are the funds that have the intention to generate a positive environmental and social impact alongside financial return. And they commit to not only have the intention, but also to measure it and set their targets. And so within the big family of sustainable finance, which has the objective to contribute to solutions for our social and environmental objectives, the impact funds go a step beyond. And the way they are constructed is really towards using finance to achieve a specific impact. And so in this specific definition, that's how we've put our own mission. We are a mission-driven company, Impact. We're based in Luxembourg, as I said. We've set up around 33 funds over the last 15 years, helping development finance institutions like the German KfW, the World Bank IFC, European Investment Bank, but also UN agencies, not-for-profits that are active also in forestry, agroforestry, and sustainable land use. And we collaborate also very closely with UNEP, which is very active also in the same sector. And so our intention, our mission is to indeed put in place the infrastructure for impact investing in general, so that impact projects could get financed by investors that are interested by this specific theme or sector. We started with microfinance, and our partners brought us into different other kind of sector, from renewable energy efficiency, education, health, and obviously agriculture, reforestation, and even now carbon credit and biodiversity finance. So we're really glad to to discuss today and to showcase one of the solutions, because as we will discuss today, funds are not always the solution for all kinds of projects, but they are part of the multiple tools that we can use. As you said, 4 trillion. This is a huge gap. You don't fill this in only with green bonds or investment funds. You don't fill this in only thanks to public money. You need different kinds of investors that would require different kinds of instruments. But also on the other side, the projects are all different. There are very large projects, there are very tiny projects, there are very innovative projects, there are some that are more mature. So all this diversity requires different ways of interaction. And that's basically what we try to establish as Impact, is to say, we as a mission, our mission is actually to design all these tools. So depending on the context, depending on the needs and their requirements, they say, let's use this tool. So we design a tool, we help the various actors to use these tools, be it a fund, be it the bond, be it a holding structure, a carbon credit fund, etc. And we try to enable the connection. And so, yeah, so that's basically about us and Impact.
Thank you so much for that very nice backdrop about the work of Impact. And so as you said, you're trying to design and cultivate these different tools to get funding to where it needs to go through whatever it means possible to have the biggest impact environmentally, socially, developmentally. And impact bonds are the tool that is the focus of this new platform, Imagine. So could you unpack that term for us a bit now? So what is an impact bond and what is the goal and the mission of the Imagine platform?
Yes. So Imagine Impact Bonds is a new vehicle that we have created, where we want to facilitate the access of impact projects, in this case, sustainable land use, biodiversity projects, to reach out to new types of investors. So as I said, the usual way is that you would go through an investment fund and select the projects and then connects to the investors. Well, more and more through the emergence of green bonds, we've seen that a direct link between the investor and the project can be made as long as you follow a certain way of structuring a bond. A bond is basically a security that you issue, that you try to place together with for investors, where you get financing for your project. And it's a very well known in the financial market, a well known instrument alongside investment funds. So really, Imagine Impact Bonds is a new platform where we would help project developers, fund managers, investment advisors that are active in sustainable land use to actually design a project, an investment project, and issue bonds within a few weeks. So it's a white label platform. It's an existing legal entity where you can basically issue your impact project bond in a few weeks. Actually, you could actually just finance one project, or 2, 3, 4, several projects. And then you can regroup, and then you regroup, let's say 10 projects for 1 million, and then you issue a bond of 10 million that you will try to sell to your different investors. These bonds are issued under what we call an impact framework that would make sure that any proceeds of the bond, the 10 million that we issue, are only invested according to certain, in this case, sustainable land use criteria, and that are aligned to the sustainable development goals, or potentially income principles if we want to issue a green bond. But generally speaking, we provide comfort to the investor that the money is only flowing into high impact projects. And that's also the additionality of this platform, is to say, not only we facilitate the issuance of the bond, but we also provide a certainty to the investor that their money goes directly to the various projects. So compared to other green bonds, where you potentially refinance a corporate for them to have a specific project, our platform, Imagine Impact Bonds, is actually directly working with the projects. So we make the direct link between the investor and the project, so that they really see the impact that they are generating. And the innovation of the platform comes from the fact that we facilitate the issuance by the fact that the platform already exists. So you don't have to go through the burden of structuring a bond yourself, learning how to do it, linking yourself to the stock exchange, hiring a lawyer, finding who would do the accounting, finding the bank, etc. Everything is in place. So the legal entity is already in place. It's a turnkey solution. You just open a compartment, and we help the project developer, the investment manager, the fund manager, to actually structure the bond and to issue the bond within a few weeks. So it's really, let's say, bond issuance as a service, if you like. So you don't have to do it yourself. And so really behind that, and the whole idea is to not only speed up the process of issuing the bond, but through standardization, facilitate the link between the projects and the investor. For the project, it gets easier and easier to issue the bond, and it gets cheaper, because usually when you talk about green bonds, you talk about bonds in the range of at least 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. Here we want to be able to issue bonds as low as 3 or 5 million, so that more projects get financed. You see, so it's not about the very large transaction that could get access to this. Obviously, we need all of these large transactions, but our aim through the platform is to democratize access to this instrument for even smaller projects, even smaller investment strategy. That's on the project side. On the investor side, what is really good is that gradually they will get to know the bonds that are issued on the platform, and thanks to the fact that it's standardized for them, they will not bother anymore to spend a lot of time to understand how it has been structured, the legal documentation. It is standardized. I recognize how it has been structured. I recognize the way they report. I really recognize the way this bond can be transferred, etc. So for me, it starts to be a commodity. I focus as an investor only on the impact and the investment strategy. So I don't spend 3 months or 5 months with my legal team and risk department to really understand whether it's well structured or not. So it facilitates really both sides and connects the two. So from the 50 million, I would say our sweet spot is between 5 million and 50 million. Projects in between 5 and 50, whether it's one project or a set of few projects, could get access through this platform to this new instrument. Normally, it would take them a year or 2 years to figure out how to do it. Here, we really want to speed up the process.
Great. Thank you so much for that really detailed definition. And just to summarize it, it's making bonds less complicated, more widespread, more democratized. You have a nice niche range of the project size that works best, and just trying to spread the impact and guarantee the impact of these bonds.
Exactly.
Great, thank you. So Sigga, let's turn to you now. You are leading this platform, and as Arnaud mentioned a bit in his first introduction about the work of impact, 2 of the key topics are biodiversity and land use. So could you tell us a bit more about what types of biodiversity and land use projects can benefit most from these bonds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe just to start that, I mean, our objective as with the bond platform is really to facilitate bond issuance of any impact bond, which has intentionality embedded into it and has intentional impact objective, where you can really link the use of proceeds from the bond to any of the SDGs and track it against the indicators, the respective indicators. So this includes biodiversity and sustainable land use investments that would typically fall under the green bond principles. So if we refer to the ICMA principles, you can go a bit narrower there, and that's what we are in terms of defining the framework, defining where exactly you can what kind of projects you want to invest in. And I want to mention as well where we are working now, for example, with UNEP on setting up a specific sustainable land use program where we would do exactly that. So starting from the ICMA green bond framework and working then into narrowing it down specifically for sustainable land use projects, providing standards that can be applicable to that kind of project. So that's kind of where we're referring to the scope of the impact. Then you can look at the type of the investments for these projects. So most typically, well, as a general kind of approach, any kind of investment idea can be securitized and can be securitized through Imagine. You basically you need to have a contract with the cash flow, and that you can securitize and to create a bond. The most common instruments are debt or mezzanine contracts, debt and mezzanine financing contracts. But we're also working with clients on securitizing carbon credit contracts, for example, where the bonds would bear interest partly or fully in kind. This, I mean, even though the market is much less developed, but this you may see this applicable to biodiversity credits, or they could follow the same track if and when that becomes a more developed market.
Thanks, Siga. I'll go back to you now, Arnaud. One of the regions of the world that is most in need of such financial mechanisms and such funding streams is the Global South. So how is Imagine connecting with project developers and making an impact in projects in the Global South?
I'll let maybe my colleague Siga respond to this specific.
Yeah,
question.
so maybe I can take that one as well. I think, I mean, what we can provide, and as a general approach, it's really our objective with Imagine, and this applies to the Global South as well. And maybe even more applicable there is, it's two things. It's, first of all, that we are providing an alternative option to reach the market. So for project developers to reach investors in the North or in Europe. So it's really kind of providing this alternative solution to setting up your own vehicle in Luxembourg, in Europe, which comes with its additional cost, additional management, etc. So Imagine is providing this easy link to the investors. And by doing that, by creating this link, providing this opportunity to project developers, as well as impact advisors, fund managers who are starting small scale, and providing this solution that is easy and flexible, and you can implement quite quickly at a low cost. We are in a way contributing to removing some barriers to catalyze private sector investment into community projects in the Global South. Another point is really the standardization, which I think, I mean, in the area of biodiversity, sustainable land use, I think both investors and project developers are calling for some standardization in terms of the impact framework to be used, and using or issuing bonds through Imagine, where we already have a framework in place. And again, referring to the work that I mentioned earlier that we're doing with UNEP, putting in place a framework that is really defining already the standards to use when it comes to impact management, measuring, monitoring, reporting. We believe that this is, again, something that is beneficial to project developers and being able to kind of bring their product to market within a recognized framework.
Thank you. Again, it sounds like, once again, a resonant goal of this platform is to kind of demystify and decomplicate impact bonds for those who want to get involved with them. So Arnaud, on that note, piggybacking off of that, beyond Imagine, going back to the work of impact as a whole, what is its vision for how it can better unlock sustainable finance holistically for biodiversity and sustainable land use and other issues around the SDGs? And what other way, what is the bigger puzzle in which impact is working? And Imagine is one piece.
Yeah, like we're trying to explain here with Imagine is that we need all types of investors, that you mentioned it as an intro, because we need, well, not only volume, but there are many different ways or challenges around biodiversity finance, sustainable land use. There are projects that could already be financed by pension funds, the very big things that are really well known, and we are not field specialists, but there are many fund managers specialized in forestry, agroforestry, sustainable land use in general, and sometimes you can design a fund that is already in the hundreds of millions. You mentioned the 4 trillion gaps, so obviously you need these big projects. But especially in this sector, I would say, well, this impact theme of biodiversity and sustainable land use, there is a really wide spectrum of the kinds of projects in terms of size, in terms of tested investment strategy, in terms of risk, in terms of type of impact that is generated, also in terms of length. I mean, when we talk about forestry, it's very long term, etc., versus other projects that could be done in a shorter term. I mean, when we talk, we're also working with partners on designing a fund for transition to regenerative agriculture, for example, and this is a fund that would last at least for 20 years. So what I think is important in impact finance, climate finance in general, is to really recognize that it's not, I mean, we need all these different approaches, and so we need everyone. But we need to be able to connect all of these different parties. That's why we talk a lot about blended finance, for example, in general, in impact investing. We need the public institutions, the foundations, the donors in general, to have a certain role to indeed unlock this capital, but not just by protecting them, but maybe by taking a bit more risk in the early days of an investment strategy, of a type of a project. So the first time that you had these carbon credit projects or funds, very few were there to actually finance them. Now you see all the big corporates just crying to get access to these carbon credits and being ready to pay for relatively high price per ton because they now understand the impact that is generated, the difference between a high impact carbon project versus a standard one. And that's also thanks to the fact that there were smaller projects funded by a bit more adventurous investors or foundations, donors to do so. And that's in this context that Imagine fits in. We are here to try to say, well, it's good. We need all these big funds that are in the hundreds of millions, where it's relatively well known how to set it up. There's a regulation there, but it's relatively costly. So how do we do for something that is below 50 million, something like that? And that's how we started to scratch our head and say, well, what are the different tools? And we say, well, securitization is relatively flexible. Yes, it's not for everybody. Like retail investors, individuals like you and me cannot invest into these kind of products as we speak for the moment. Hopefully it will come in the future. But this is a way to give a quite secure, well-structured, organized, standardized, streamlined way for these maybe foundations, donors, venture philanthropists, and impact investors to connect with the smaller projects and do the testing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then after these 5 years, show to the bigger investors, look, we've tested this investment strategy. Here is a track record. 5 years of investment, we've learned this and that and that. We've learned through the project, and here are the results, and here is the impact actually generated. And we need all of these a bit more, yes, risky, more innovative approaches for the future. And in 10 years, these that are being done now will not become mainstream, but becoming more and more easy. And that's what Siga was mentioning, the work that is being currently done on biodiversity credit. For the moment, it's really the early days, but hopefully in 15 years, it will be just like the carbon credits, it will be easy. So back to this is our role as Impact through the Imagine platform, to provide these tools to say, here's something that is professionally run, well-structured, but that is affordable for these more smaller investment strategy. Let's take an example. The first 3 compartments that we are setting up for the moment are investment advisors that are testing strategies as low as 5 million. Their intention is to do 3 or 4 projects for 2 or 3 investors. And after 2 years, if it works, then they will move this compartment that is created under the securitization into a proper fund. After 2 or 3 years, indeed, they will be able to show to other investors, see, this is, first, the project exists, you can invest into them, they can yield a return, and this is the impact that they have generated. So these elements allow you to actually start. And that's what we are trying to do as Impact. We're trying to make sure that all types of investors for all types of project could be connected, because we need all of them, and not just working on the big renewable energy projects that are in the billions. And so democratizing access not only for the projects to these instruments, but also for the investors to these impact is very important. Always, as mentioned by Sigge, within the rights, not only financial structuring, but also impact structuring comfort that we could give to both sides, that you will have the right investor for the right projects, and also for the investor they are ensured that the projects are of high impact and they report correctly. Because the issue that we see in the traditional finance for the moment is all these ESG funds that are being let's say having very bad reputation these days, and which has a bad impact on the trends that investors look at more sustainable finance. So it's very, very important that beyond the financial structuring that we facilitate here, is that the impact stays at the very top. That's why also we are partnering with UNEP to put this really not only a stempel, but really guaranteeing to the investors that whatever goes out of the platform will be top-notch in terms of impact from a sustainable land use.
Thank you so much, Arnaud. So we're coming up on time here. So I just want to quickly take one question from the audience that's come in, because we do have a lot of project managers and people who are involved in projects on the ground in our audience. And one of them is asking, what is the verification process for a project seeking funding from impact bonds or via impact bonds? Perhaps Sigge, you can take this one.
Yeah, so I can take that one. A very good question, thank you. So the verification process, it depends to what extent you are going with your bond issuance in terms of framework. So starting just with our platform, all the bonds that we issue through our platform, because it's important, like Arnaud was saying, and we said before that, we really believe that these are impact projects, and the proceeds are being used towards the intentional impact objective of the project. So we have internally our own kind of ESG and impact management policy that will always apply. So it's our internal framework that will apply to any kind of bond that is issued, and the process in a way of is internally on our side. So we have within the impact, or within, the Imagine company itself, we have an eligibility committee that is composed of experts in the field, and may later on have experts that are really specific to a specific theme, who will review, well, first of all, the capacity of the what we call originator, which is basically the manager of the project, to select projects to manage the use of proceeds, and to report then on the use of proceeds in line with the framework, or with the promises in a way that they are giving to their investor. So that's a step that always applies. And then we also look at the projects, obviously, if those projects are in line with either the framework and again the terms that have been promised to the investors, or in line with the investment strategy, if it's a case of more active management, where there is a strategy in place under which the manager will select the projects. So this is internally on our side. Then if the bonds are being issued through a program which is using the ICMA, basing itself on any of the ICMA principles, so the international carbon, sorry, on the ICMA principles, then we have in addition on our side a framework which has had a second party opinion on the framework itself. So that's again an external reviewer external review on the framework, which is then applicable. Sorry, International Capital Market Association is what I wanted to say earlier.
Thank you. Thank you for finding that acronym. There are many around out there. Well, thank you guys so much for making the time to talk to us. If there's been one takeaway for me, it's just the work that Imagine is doing to make impact bonds as accessible and as easy as possible for anyone who wants to use them to facilitate funding to the projects that need it. So thank you guys for the work that you're doing to make this space thrive. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to teach us about impact bonds and impact investment holistically. And thank you to everyone who made space in their day to listen. And we look forward to seeing you next time on GLF Live.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Thank you, GLF. Bye.